All right, I said stability is the biggest threat to forklift safety. Now, that is very true. It is the biggest threat to forklift safety, and the biggest cause of that stability issue is our max capacity. Now, every forklift has an ID plate, and it has on it a maximum capacity that it can operate within. But I'm here to tell you, the maximum capacity on that ID plate is not the true maximum capacity. What do you mean? What do you mean, Steve? What do you mean it's not the maximum capacity? Well, that maximum capacity is for one particular measurement. Now remember, when I talked about earlier load stacking and getting it right up against the mast so that it is against the mast and tilted and all that, that's important. When we look at our maximum capacity, it's usually on a 24-inch load center with a 24-inch load center height, meaning that the pallet is 48 by 48 inches, generally speaking, and the center of that is 24 inches. And that means that the pallet is all the way against our mast. As the pallet moves out and the load center moves away, the maximum capacity starts to drop. Imagine that ball that's sitting here, right? And we start to move it out. Here's the question. If I have a 10-pound ball here and I move it out away from my body, how much does the ball weigh? Well, the ball still weighs 10 pounds, but the leverage starts to enact more force on my back, right? So this 10 pounds here is straight down. As I move it out, it starts to pull me over. It puts maybe 50 to 100 pounds of force on my back. The same thing is happening on our forklift. Now, when I get out and I do training on site, I'll ask, well, what's the heaviest thing you have? Do you have anything that reaches the max capacity? And a lot of people say, no, we don't. So I walk around and I'll usually find something. A good example of this is cold patch for public works entities. They'll have these bags of cold patch. They weigh about 50 pounds a piece, sometimes 100, and they'll have a whole pallet of them. And the pallet will weigh 3,000 or 4,000 pounds, right? And they don't really think about this. They pull in, they lift it up, right? And they start to manipulate it. And what I'll usually do, and this takes a little bit of skill for the operator, and don't do this at your site unless you're under supervision and you have the right safety gear around. But I'll have them pick this pallet up and I'll have them start to extend it. And I'll have someone hold a sheet of paper and try to slip it under the tire, the rear tire. And they usually can't when they first slide into the pallet. As that starts to go up and starts to go out, the rear tire will start to lift. And I've been able to take it so we can slip our whole hand underneath that tire. And it's just to that point where it's going to tip over. The bottom line here is that the maximum capacity is dependent. So it's not an independent variable. It's a dependent variable on the load center and the load height. So the farther away from the mast it gets and the higher away it gets, it starts to change the maximum capacity of the forklift. So we'll see this all the time on rough terrain construction forklifts. You get a 5,000-pound forklift, you go out and you're going to pick up an air conditioning unit, and the air conditioning unit weighs 4,900 pounds, so you should be good. But the air conditioning unit's load center is 36 inches or 40 inches. And so when they go to pick it up, the thing tips over, and they can't figure out why. Well, the why is that for every inch that you move out, you're losing a couple hundred pounds in maximum capacity. Now, I'm going to include here on the site a forklift maximum capacity calculator so you can put in your numbers and see what that is. But bottom line is, you need to understand what the maximum capacity is and look at your charts, especially if you have a reach forklift where it goes out, up, and telescoping type forks. That changes dramatically based on the angle and how far out those forks are. So extremely important. Understand max capacity, read your ID plate, and do your calculations. Your traditional everyday loads that you're working with, the 48 by 48 inch pallet, those are great. 24 by 24, okay, that's good. When you come to something that's larger than that, longer than that, taller and bigger and wider, you need to stop and you need to go evaluate what's going to happen with that maximum capacity, because that, again, is the number one contributor to the stability of the forklift. If you exceed the max capacity, there's nothing that you can do. You're going over. That's it. You're done. You're going over. And when that happens, you're in big trouble.